Hello, my name is Arash Qassemi. I'm an Iranian Muslim. To highlight our diverse Harvard family and promote cross-cultural understanding, I asked my fellow Harvard students and faculty members to share their Nowruz story with us. In this documentary, we have people of a variety of faiths, including of the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as well as different nationalities and ethnicities, sharing their story. Those included in this film are just a sample of the tremendous variety of Nowruz traditions at Harvard. We also discuss the first Nowruz celebration at Harvard in recent memory, as well as some of the most recent Nowruz celebration here. I realized Nowruz is not just a celebration of spring. As a symbol, it means different things to different people depending on the meaning they attach to it. And what it means to one is not necessarily the same as what it means to the others. To some, Nowruz is a vehicle, a tool to re-establish, reconstruct, and reclaim their individual and or social identity. To others, Nowruz is a bridge which connects them to their heritage and a distant past. To me, Nowruz is the manifestation of hope, the new day, forgiving those whom did us wrong, visiting family, friends, poor, needy, and the most important of all, re-establishing a new life under the old Persian saying, think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds are some of the characteristic features of Nowruz in Iran. Happy Nowruz. I wish you and your family wonderful days and amazing nights. May God bless you and your family.
Hi, I'm Farhad Dokhani, a joint degree PhD candidate in History and Middle Eastern Studies at Harvard, focusing on modern Iran, 19th and into the 20th centuries. I have been for the past 4 years the president or the co-president of the Harvard GSAS, Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, Iranian Student Association, or let's call it HISA for short, as we tend to do. HISA has been fundamental over the past 4 years in its role leading the student-led Nowruz event here at Harvard. I want to speak on that. However, first, I want to go into a bit of my own personal journey and experience with Nowruz, and that eventually led into me taking over as a leader of HISA. I started out in a sort of a complicated family situation. I was born in Houston, in the United States, and I moved to Iran by myself at 3 years old. And I stayed there in Iran for 3 years in Isfahan. Now, those are some of the most fond and beloved memories to me, and it included Nowruz, which I wish I remembered more of, but I do remember some of it, including the terrific mehmunis, back and forth visitations, all of the love, all of the celebrations, and mind-blowing food that can only be experienced in the motherland. When I was approximately 6 years old, I returned back to the United States to live with my father's side of the family, which was a multicultural family, and so we celebrated with more emphasis the American holidays. We celebrated Nowruz still as the only or main Iranian holiday. However, we typically did so more in the community-wide Houston events, joining some of those. Whenever I was older in my teens, much like many Iranian Americans, I underwent a personal identity crisis. My crisis resulted in me doing a great search, being drawn to my Iranian heritage roots, and traditions. And this culminated in me taking courses in college. So in college, I was a history major. At the same time, I started out biology and pre-med, which was my main orientation towards becoming a doctor. And as many of us Iranians, we have to become either that route or the engineering route. And I naturally found myself drawn initially toward that. However, as I became more aware of my passions and what I really wanted to do, I realized I wanted to go into academia and research, be a professor. And so I added on Persian and Middle Eastern studies, and I went towards the direction of focusing on Iranian and Middle Eastern history, and I have so ever since. I was accepted into Harvard. Soon before attending Harvard, I was reconnected with my mother's side of the family, where Nowruz celebrations took on an increased importance and increased relevance, as she and her side of the family were connected more to the Iranian community of Houston. So there was more visitations with other Iranian families and even more celebrations within the home. So when I would go back for spring break, it became a more intentionary and more purposeful and greater celebration of Nowruz in some ways. At Harvard, a couple of years into my degree, there was a crisis in GSAS, the Harvard Iranian grad student organization that represents the grad schools as well as the professional schools. Our organization was about to become inactive, and I was not an active member really, except attending certain events. But I decided to save the organization before it became inactive at the urging of the former president, and with the assistance of Sam Sinai, who was a PhD student here at Harvard as well. We decided to focus on diversity and inclusion as a main sort of principle as part of the organization, whose mission is to promote the intellectual and cultural activities of Iran, Iranian cultural and intellectual activities for Iranians and non-Iranians. And we wanted to both increase the academic sort of side of it and the diversity of the organization and build the community to a greater extent. Nowruz was fundamental in many of these goals, and we approached Nowruz in such a way. For example, our first year we had Professor Hushang Shahabi come and give a lecture on Nowruz as is celebrated in its diverse traditions across the world, from China to Afghanistan to the Central Asian countries. Several of them celebrate Nowruz. And throughout different parts of the world that many people are not aware of and think it's mostly just Iranian and Persian sort of holiday. So I think that was very informative for a lot of people, and it sort of helped us continue our trajectory and emphasize this diversity, including the many immigrant students that were here at Harvard and immigrant members of the community who are in a great symbiosis and have been active and important along with the American-born Iranians. And so our Nowruz continued. The past 4 years, GSAS was leading it, along with the participation and some assistance from the college students, Harvard College Iranian Association. And the year before this one was a historic Nowruz, with the biggest one in Harvard's history of approximately 200 people. And it was a fantastic event, not only because of the numbers, but because it had both Harvard and non-Harvard from across the Boston community. We had people, as well as a diversity of people from the Harvard community. The Central Asian college students didn't have an organization for themselves, so we made an active effort to include them and have them bring pastries and sweets from their native countries, and also made sure that they participated and were involved in and attended the Nowruz event. we also had someone from the Iranian Jewish tradition, Evan Matin, who is part of this documentary, come and recite a prayer from his own tradition as a beginning to sort of highlighting the various religious, the various ethnic traditions, and how they celebrate Nowruz sometimes in different ways than we're used to. So it's continuing this academic perspective. GSAS is a non-political and non-religious organization, so we do not privilege any particular religion, do not privilege any particular political viewpoint. However, we provide a forum to highlight the diversity and to bring the community together without them having to sacrifice their other aspects of their identity or their other identities, and to unite together in mutual harmony, and all of us as human beings. And I think this is one of the most beautiful aspects of Nowruz. With the support of the Vafa family, who's really been supporting all of our Nowruz events and Iranian activities throughout, and they're basically family to all of us Iranians here at Harvard, and with the wonderful Nowruz team and group of volunteers who put in so much into the Nowruz event, the hours of their time that they took from that they could have been studying or doing other fun social things. Nowruz has been an incredible event and the highlight of our organization, in which we have been able to transcend these boundaries. One of the most beautiful things to me about Nowruz, and I want to end my discussion on this, is that Nowruz is beautiful because it brings us all together as human beings. It unites us and it transcends the political, the religious, the ethnic, the national boundaries, and unites us all into one beautiful family.
My name is Olga Davidson, and I'm a huge fan of Nowruz, and I will now tell you why. I study Persian languages and literatures, especially the Shahnameh, but in 1991, I was really upset at Harvard about how Harvard was reacting to the invasion of Iraq with George H.W. Bush, and there was something called, well, let me go back a little bit further because I don't want to conflate all the Persian Arabic stuff, but there was something at Harvard called cultural rhythms. And in cultural rhythms, there was no representation at all of Persian. And the Harvard Arab students were not allowed to participate in cultural rhythms at all, but they objected, and finally they were allowed to do a dabka. That's it. They couldn't do anything else but do a dabka. And this was during the Gulf War in 1991. And in the meantime, there was a film festival going on at Carpenter Center. And at that time, I was housemaster, which is now called academic dean or whatever, at Currier House. And there was a student there who was half Iranian and half Greek. And her name was, she had the best name, Desiree Aphrodite Nawab. And I called her Desi for short. And so she and I went to the film festival, and I told her, I said, we have to start a Persian club. We have to do this. And so we went to the film festival, and then she started going up to mostly boys and getting their phone numbers and saying, you know, we're starting a Persian club, give me your telephone number, your name or whatever, and we'll let you know. This is all obviously before email even existed. And so then I noticed that all the girls were noticing that she was getting all the boys' numbers, so getting their numbers was really easy. And so we decided to do it all around Nowruz. And my feeling about Nowruz was the time of it is in the middle of March, and it's just always horrible weather in Boston. And its great competitor is St. Patrick's Day, which involves green beer and a lot of vomit. So I kept on thinking, there's a better way to get through March. This is all this sort of backstory of this. So what we did was we used Nowruz as our event to bring together every Iranian American Harvard student. Remember, this was 1991, is when people's names, they were called Feridun, they called themselves Fred. And so it was really hard to get people to sort of say loud and proud that they were Iranian American. But the word got out, as it does normally in Iranian community, and suddenly 200 people showed up at Courier House for our Nowruz party. And I knew about Charshambe Suri, and so because I was housemaster, I could do what I wanted. So I put up all these fires inside flower pots out in a courtyard so we could all jump over fires. This is our entertainment for our Nowruz party. And I set up a half scene by myself, taking a photograph from Najmieh Batman-Khalij's Food for Life book. I copied it to the T of whatever I could, I copied. Going to Persian stores and saying, help me, do this. And being American, they all thought I was a spy trying to do something wrong. But anyway, we put together a half scene and all these kids showed up, and it was wonderful because there were people who said, oh my God, my grandmother's Persian. I mean, I was raised Italian, but my grandmother's Persian. This is reminding me of so much. So it became a big success. Then we had to make it a Persian club. But then there was a huge discussion of whether you're going to call it the Harvard Persian Club or the Harvard Iranian Club. And it went back and forth, and people were saying, I'm not going to do it if it's called the Persian Club, or I'm not going to do it if it's called the Iranian Club. We finally settled it on the Persian Club because there was an Afghani student who said that he celebrated Nowruz, he spoke Dari, and he felt excluded if it was called the Iranian Club. So we called it Persian Club. And then at that point, I kept on saying, let's call it the Persianate Club. Let's call it the Persian Empire Club. Let's call it, and everyone said, no, calm down. So anyway, it started off as the Persian Club. And then I left the Courier House then, and then this wonderful Afghani student, his name was Masood Farivar. God, he was funny. He was from Afghanistan. He actually had been a teenage mujahideen and then was given a scholarship by some Americans to come and study in the States, and so he was at Harvard. And then he became the president of the Persian Club after I'd left. Desiree was there first, and then he became president. He took it over. And then I told him, I said, see if you can claim, as part of your identity that we have to jump through fire. He lived in Winthrop House, and he said he tried really, really hard. And I think they might have let us jump through fire the first Nowruz party in 1992, and then they finally said, no, we can't have fires all over the place at Harvard. And so they nixed that. But that's how it started at Harvard. And then I was at the time, even though I was housemaster at Harvard, I was also teaching at Brandeis University. So I also decided to start one at Brandeis University. And so at Brandeis University, there were a lot of Iranian Americans. Mostly they were Iranian Jews. They were everybody. There were a lot of Baha'is. There were Iranian Jews, as well as obviously Iranian Muslims and some Iranian Christians. And so it was very easy. Again, it was so easy at Brandeis to get this going. And we set up the half scene. At one point, we wanted to set up the half scene, and the student center so everyone would see that Iranians weren't terrorists at Brandeis University. And then I remember at one point they said no because they were afraid it was going to be that it was a risk. It was a security risk. And we sort of laughed thinking about the goldfish coming out and attacking you. But we went along with it. And then it was great because we'd do these Nowruz parties and everyone would come to them. Of course, our big feature at that point was to smoke kalyun. And so, again, we had lots of Persian food and the whole bit. And then Brandeis being Brandeis, you have to give money at Brandeis. Everyone's always giving money. And so at that time there were earthquakes in Iran, and suddenly there was, I think the sort of Persian group, this nascent Persian group, managed to raise $200 to send to Iran for earthquake victims. And this was great for me because suddenly I started getting these sort of strange little cards from the UN, sort of saying, you know, Happy Easter, or, you know, but no one would sign it. And so it made it very easy for me to get a visa to go to Iran in 1998, and that's what I did. What makes me particularly happy now is to realize that this has continued. I haven't obviously been active at all. I've been living my life and doing something completely different. But what's beautiful about it at Harvard is that I know that there's a graduate student Iranian group, and then the undergraduate one is continued. The names, of course, change. You have to either say, you know, I don't know, College Iranian Society or whatever. But it's very clear what it is. And one of the things which I do know that happens is that they're poetry readings. And then the other thing which I really like is when you have poetry readings is, I suppose you could say, the intimidation factor of Iranian American students who come and read poetry. They can kind of try things out at Harvard and learn how to do it right without, I don't know, their parents and everybody laughing the fact that they have American accents. I know the whole scene about how that happens, and so people are afraid to do these things. But, you know, reading Persian poetry is hard. Doing the prosody is hard, but it's doable. Very doable, and it's fun. And so I'm glad that people are doing this. And then the other thing, which I think is really great, is that people are now reading. I know there's a class being taught with the Shahnameh in translation with a lot of Persian in it, which is great. And my personal thing, just going back to what I wanted to contribute for my legacy or whatever it is, my husband's Gregory Naj. He's a professor in the classics department. And I am very proud to say that the Shahnameh has become very known among classicists. And way back when, during the 80s, when I was working on the Shahnameh, I did once teach a class, which is commonly called Frozen Heroes for Sub-Zeros, but it's Old Norse. And I remember, you know, showing the parallels between the Nibelungen Lied or things in Old Irish with the Persian stuff. And it was the reaction always was, oh, that's so exotic. I mean, it's written in that alphabet, whatever one would say. And now it's very different. So many people in the classics department are learning both Persian and Arabic. So many people in the linguistics department are doing the same. And then when you look and see who's doing what in comparative literature, it used to only be, you know, French and German, Italian and Russian. And now it's very heavily dominated by Persian, Arabic, and Urdu. And so I'm extremely happy to see this shift that's happened and the de-exotification of the Shahnameh. One last note, I remember when reading in the New York Times, I think it was Elaine Sciolino, was commenting that Khatami was, I don't know, at the UN, and she quoted, and she said, from some obscure Persian poet called, and then, you know, called Ferdowsi. And I was thinking, are you kidding me? Obscure? His name is on the BPL, by the way. But anyway, I've always felt very strongly about this. And so I'm glad that the Shahnameh studies have become popular at Harvard and even everywhere else. So, Zendabad Ferdowsi and Eid Shuma Mubarak. Dom Shuma Se Charak. Bas.
My name is Chris Martin, and I'm the Outreach Director at the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies here at the university, at Harvard University. And as the Outreach Director, I have the opportunity to bring programs and events that help explain and explore our region, Russia and Eurasia, with people who are less familiar with our region, with a community that's outside of the traditional Harvard community. And I had the good fortune about 11 years ago, not long after I started here, to make connections with staff at the Center for Middle Eastern Studies, and he suggested that we have an event to celebrate Nowruz, and I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't even really know what Nowruz was at the time. It was never part of my own cultural tradition, and my colleague informed me that it's obviously the celebration of the Persian New Year, and that it's not only celebrated in Iran and in other areas that were sort of touched by the Persian Empire, but sort of widely celebrated throughout Eurasia, the former Soviet Union, particularly in Azerbaijan, Georgia, and in Central Asia, so Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. And so, like I said, 11 years ago, we had our first Nowruz celebration, and we've been doing it every year since. And I really enjoy doing it because it allows us at the Davis Center to work with colleagues at the Center for Middle East Studies, at the Islamic Studies program. A couple of years ago, we began working with the Semitic Museum here on campus and hosting the celebration there. It also allows us to show that this is a very diverse cultural event, that it's celebrated widely amongst people of many nations, and it allows us to sort of look at areas within our own region of Eurasia that sometimes get less attention than other areas, say potentially like Russia. Celebrating Nowruz is always really rewarding for me personally because it means that it's spring, and I think it's always a great opportunity to celebrate spring, particularly here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where March can almost always be bitter and cold. And so when you see the first blooms of spring, you're always very excited. But Nowruz always signifies to me that the days are getting longer, that things are about to bloom, and it's always really great to be able to celebrate that with a community here at Harvard, some of whom are very familiar with Nowruz and celebrate it with their own families here in the U.S., and some of whom are much, much less familiar with the cultural significance of the event and really come to learn more about how the holiday is celebrated in diverse communities throughout the world. And I really appreciate it, although it is often a struggle to think about how representative we're being at the Nowruz celebration itself, because each community that celebrates Nowruz does it in sometimes minor and sometimes more majorly different ways. We try every year to put together a program that is reflective of the many different cultural components that go into celebrating Nowruz. So of course, we have a Hafsin table, and we usually have a musical celebration as well as some poetry and, of course, food to celebrate with, because it's not a celebration without food. But every year we try and think about the diverse peoples who are celebrating Nowruz and bring a different perspective on that celebration every year, which is both sort of an opportunity and a challenge. One challenge sometimes putting the Hafsin table together is the issue around the goldfish and whether or not we should get a goldfish. A goldfish is a part of many people's Hafsin table, and for several years we did include a goldfish in our Hafsin table, but it meant that I became a goldfish owner for a short time, and that wasn't always something that I wanted. So one year we tried to get by with a glass goldfish, but it was noticed by some of our constituents at our event. So it'll be you'll have to come and see if we have a goldfish this year at our celebration.
All right. I'm Ali Asani. I'm a professor of Islamic religion and cultures here at Harvard University, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the celebration of Nowruz in the Ismaili communities of the world. The Ismailis are a minority group amongst the Shia, but they have very close connections with Persian culture. In the 11th, 12th century, one of their major states, Alamut, is of course based in Iran, and the Ismaili imams lived in Iran, and after the fall of Alamut, they continued to live in Iran. So Persian language, culture, and so on became a very important way in which Ismaili ideas and thought were expressed. Of course, one of the greatest poets, but also preachers of the Ismaili thought was Nasir Khosrow, who is renowned, of course, for being one of the pioneers, not only of poetry, but also of Persian prose. Given this Persian influence, the festival of Nowruz has always been important for the Ismailis of Iran, and also I would say the Persianate-speaking world, which includes Central Asia, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and so on. But very interestingly, in the 18th century, the Ismaili imams who were in Iran moved to India. And with the move to India, where they had, a huge following of disciples, the festival of Nowruz also started to be celebrated amongst the Ismailis of India. And on this particular occasion, the imams would bless them with barakah. Usually they're given some wheat and some wheat grains and sometimes sugar, raisins, things like that. It's a little mixture of all these things put together in a small packet, and they're given to the individual disciples as a form of barakah, to bring them barakah for the upcoming year. People also have celebrations in the home. In Tajikistan, for example, they have, like in Iran, they have the Haftzin. In South Asia, usually on the day of Nowruz, people get up very early in the morning. They go to the Jamaat Khana and their special prayers for Nowruz to mark the beginning of the new year. And then this is also then repeated in the evening as well. So the usual date, so the date of Nowruz is not so much based by the solar calendar, like the exact turning of the new year, but it's always 21st of March. And because it's fixed on a particular date, you now find today, when you have Ismaili communities all over the world living in 35 different countries, and that the festival of Nowruz has become part of the religious festivals of the year. So 21st of Nowruz becomes a major occasion for Ismailis, whether they're living in Canada or the United States or Kenya or Mozambique or Portugal or South Asia or Iran. So it's become a kind of a transnational festival for Ismaili Muslims. And again, it's a testimony to the close connections that the Ismaili tradition has with Iran, but also interestingly, the imams of the Ismailis also had close connections with the Qajars and so on. So there are some interesting historical connections there, which explain why this festival has become so important for Ismailis around the world.
Hello, my name is Sema Mehmedova and I am from Baku, Azerbaijan. Although Azerbaijan has not practiced Zoroastrianism as a religion for centuries, the celebration of Nowruz Bayram, which is the Zoroastrian New Year, is still a very prominent part of Azerbaijani cultural and traditional life. Before the actual celebration of the Azerbaijani New Year on March 21st, there are 4 Tuesdays preceding it. There are the Tuesdays of water, fire, earth, and air, which are the 4 elements of life in the Zoroastrian religion. The 4 Tuesdays symbolize the renewal of nature, the day when water wakes up or the day when the fire wakes up and sun starts shining brighter. The most important of them all is the last Tuesday, which culminates the renewal of the nature and the actual beginning of spring. That is the day when Azerbaijanis engage in fortune-telling to see what the new year may bring to them. One of the most curious examples of fortune-telling is the one with the ring. A young woman would take a ring off her finger, pick a string of her hair, tie the ring to the string of hair, and hold it over a glass of water. And the number of times that the ring touches the inner wall of the glass will be the number of years that must pass before the young woman finally meets her true love. Before the celebration of Nowruz itself, there is also the eve of Nowruz, March 20th. Since it is the last day of the year, it is an important day for Azerbaijanis to look back at what the year has brought to them, both good and bad. One of the most important steps towards ending the year is visiting the graves of the deceased ones, which became especially important to Azerbaijanis after all the civilian deaths that came during the Nagorno-Karabakh war. At the same time, it is also a day to clean the negative emotions that pent up during the year. So one must clean his or her house with a lot of water to wash away all the sicknesses and problems and bad memories out of the house. Similarly, each Azerbaijani must settle his or her disputes with the neighbors and friends and relatives by coming into the neighbor's house with presents and apologies and some treats in terms of food. Moreover, Azerbaijanis light bonfires everywhere on the day of Nowruz Eve and dance in circles around the bonfire in a traditional dance called Yallı. The people hold hands when they dance Yallı, and that is a way of building the community and reminding each other of how important it is to be together with your neighbors. So dancing around the fire in a circle is a way to appreciate people in your town. Similarly, people jump over the fire as a way of burning down all the sins and sicknesses and negative memories and problems that the past year has brought, which is an important celebration, especially for the children who love jumping over the fire and dancing around it. Finally, when the day of Nowruz itself arrives, Azerbaijanis celebrate it with music and food and traditional performances. First of all, each family decorates a tray or khoncha that they fill with fruits and nuts and traditional Azerbaijani pastries that are made specifically for Nowruz. The three most important pastries are goghal, which is a spicy circular treat that reminds Azerbaijanis of the sun with its shape and its heat, and shekerbura, which is crescent-shaped and sweet and reminds people of the moon, and the pakhlava, which is a diamond shape and reminds people of stars. At the same time, Azerbaijanis cook plov, which is a rice dish with meat and 7 spices. 7 because number 7 is one of the more important numbers in the Zoroastrian tradition. There are over 50 different kinds of plov in Azerbaijan alone, and it's popular all over the Middle East as well. Similarly, people decorate eggs, which the children later use as a way of playing and competing with each other. So they hit the eggs against each other, and whichever egg is the last one to crack is the one that wins. Finally, Azerbaijanis grow semeni or wheatgrass on small plates and put them on their traditional trays as well. Semeni is a symbol of spring and of the abundant harvest, because this is what people have been expecting for the entire year for the spring. Another important part of Nowruz celebrations is the hat throwing, which children really love. It's a form of Azerbaijani trick-or-treating, where a child takes his hat and goes to a neighbor's house, leaves the hat under the door, rings a neighbor's bell, and hides. And when the surprised neighbor comes out of the house, he finds this hat, fills it with treats and pastries, and leaves it again for the child to gather. In addition to celebrating Nowruz with the community, which is very important, Azerbaijanis must also use this day to appreciate their families and spend quality time with them. This is why the Nowruz dinner is very important for Azerbaijanis. When they gather around the holiday table, Azerbaijanis light candles and imagine a fairy, Hemisha Khanım, which means lady forever or lady always, coming by their window, looking in and observing the way they celebrate the holiday. It is believed that she can determine the way one's year will continue depending on how they celebrate Nowruz. So for example, if the family is celebrating Nowruz with positive emotions and games and fun conversations, then Hemisha Khanım will make sure that those positive emotions will stay in the family for the whole year. However, if the family is gossiping or fighting or behaving poorly, then those negative emotions will stay in the family as well, and they will bring with them negative news and disease. Similarly, there is a theatrical performance that holds a very important part in the Azerbaijani celebration of Nowruz. The theatrical performance has 3 characters. Kosa, who is a grumpy guy representing winter. He has a goat-like beard, and he has a nasty demeanor and brings bad emotions to the play. Then there's Kechel, who is bold and funny and makes sure that the celebration goes with a sense of humor and with a positive attitude. And then finally there's Bahar Gaze, who is the maiden of spring, and she's beautiful and young and energetic, and she comes wearing a colorful bright dress painted with all the colors of the spring. During the theatrical performance itself, Kyosa makes trouble and upsets everyone, and the people of the city banish him from the town with the help of the funny Kechel, who plays tricks on Kyosa and kicks him out of the city. After that, the entire city welcomes the Maiden of Spring in her beautiful ceremonial procession. And once she enters the gates of the city, the spring and the new year are finally here. In addition to bringing a new page on the calendar and a new year for Azerbaijanis, Nowruz is also an important celebration of hope and of a new, happier beginning, be it on a personal level or on a political level for the country or just for a family. Whenever one feels a sense of difficulty or a sense of sadness, Nowruz is something that reinforces one's spirit, because no matter how difficult you may be feeling today, when you think of Nowruz, you think of a new day, and you think of a new year, and you think of a new beginning, which will bring more happiness and more positivity to you in the future.
So my name is Cameron Consarinia. I'm a senior at Harvard College. We're in Dunster House, my residential house here at the college. I'm on the executive board of the Harvard College Iranian Association, the undergraduate group for Iranian and Persian students and students with interest in that part of the world. I'm also part of the Harvard Iranian Alumni Association. Together, we put on programming throughout the year, particularly the Iranian Summit at Harvard, which is a complication of the Harvard Iranian Gala and the Harvard Iranian Weekend. So my Persian identity is a pretty big part of who I am, and it always has been. My family, my dad's family is Iranian and Persian, and so growing up, one of the most important parts of being Persian was the Nowruz holiday, especially for those of us who were born, raised, and grew up in the United States and any other country really outside of Iran. Nowruz is really the manifestation to me of what it means to be Persian, because it involves all the critical things, food, family, and happiness. And that, for me, growing up, was really the seminal aspect of my Persian identity, and it was the Nowruz celebration. So Nowruz means new day in Persian, and it's the first day of spring. It happens at the vernal equinox, when the day and night are equal in length, and it's a great celebration. And for those of us in the West who grew up with Christmas and Thanksgiving and 4th of July and those kind of things in the United States, Nowruz is really a compilation of all of those things. It's everything thrown into one. It's a huge jamboree. In Iran, the celebrations last 2 weeks. Everyone's off for school. It's bookended by Charshamba Suri at the beginning, which is a celebration of fire. All of these date back to ancient times, and they start with the Zoroastrian religion. And Charshamba Suri is a festival in which people jump over fire to cleanse them of evil spirits and to invite in felicitous spirits and sentiments for the coming year. And it's bookended on the other end by the celebration of Sizdabedar, in which people go out into parks and celebrate the spring and family and general feelings of happiness and felicity. And all of those three holidays, Charshamba Suri, the day of Nowruz on the equinox, the actual New Year, and Sizdabedar are all celebrated with relative frequency in the United States. So I grew up in Southern California, and there are always huge gatherings for Charshamba Suri in parks where people go and jump over fires. And there's also large Sizdabedar gatherings in big public parks in Orange County and Los Angeles, and huge Persian populations there get together and celebrate these things. But for me growing up, the big thing was always Nowruz. The bookends were always kind of fun and important, but Nowruz was always the most critical aspect, because it was when my entire family got together. And I remember one particular incident when Nowruz was very important to me. My grandfather, Karim Consarinia, of whom I'm his namesake, my middle name is Karim, was very sick, and he was living in hospice care at the time. He must have been in his 90s. And I remember my dad telling me that this was going to be the first time that Baba, as everyone called him, wasn't going to be joining us for Nowruz, because he was too ill. He couldn't get up the stairs of the house, and he'd be staying in hospice care. And I just remember being totally tormented by that, because the Nowruz celebration, at least for me, was a time of all of our entire family getting together with just total happiness and joy. And to have him, the leader of our family, really the person who brought us to the United States, not be part of that celebration, I was pretty crushed. And so I threw a big fit. And to be honest with you, it was so long ago and I was so young that I don't remember if he ended up joining us for that Eid celebration, the Nowruz celebration. But the year after, he ended up passing away just around the time of Nowruz. So that Nowruz was a particularly sad one, and it's Persian custom, at least in our family, that when something of that magnitude and such a sad event happens around what should be a felicitous time, you shouldn't celebrate. So we pretty much canceled Nowruz that year, and we just kind of came together for a celebration of his life and memory of his life. So that's a particular example of what Nowruz means to me. I just remember being so devastated that my grandfather couldn't join us for that Nowruz. Even as a kid, I think I knew the importance of the holiday, especially for someone like myself who has never been to Iran. For various reasons. I would love to go, but I have as yet been unable to. So Nowruz is kind of the embodiment of what it means to be Persian and what it means to be an Iranian American and what it means to be connected to my culture. So it's always been such a special time when, whether it's getting together for my aunt's amazing cooking of sabzi pulu mahi, which is kind of vegetable rice, I guess, with white fish and sprinkled with these really, really sour oranges, which are just unbelievable and only come at a certain time of the year. So it's always been important. And as I've gotten older, it's, I think, gained an even more significant importance in my life. For example, as when I came to college and I wasn't surrounded by my family all the time, I kind of began to develop a new family of Persian and Iranian Americans and Iranians here at Harvard. From the people putting on this amazing project to the people in HCIA, we kind of stepped away from our home lives in which we were surrounded by our family, in which Nowruz was kind of the anchor event for all of us, and we kind of had to come together for our own traditions, whether that was going out to a Persian restaurant, a few times a year and getting together, or FaceTiming each other's families and meeting each other's parents when they come, and meeting everyone's babas and mamans, and developing a new family here was so important. And one of the really neat things about Nowruz at Harvard is the vast variety of Nowruz celebrations that we have here. They're organized by museums, the Semitic Museum, the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. Student groups put on their own Nowruz celebrations. And so Nowruz has kind of taken on, really for me, more of a traditional Iranian celebration here, because there are so many celebrations, maybe 5 or 6, that for me this is like a step up from the one celebration I had back at home. It's like almost as if the closest thing I've experienced to being in Iran for Nowruz, because there's all these different things, as I'm told from family, that that's how it is in Iran, where you're celebrating for 2 weeks straight. And so it's just so great to have met some amazing people here with whom I can more properly celebrate the Persian New Year. I may not be with my family all the time. For example, this year it fell on a Tuesday, and so I couldn't be with my family because we had classes. But had the opportunity to celebrate with friends and people who have become a new family. And one couple in particular who have, I think, made Nowruz really special at Harvard for me, and I think also I can say for the broader Persian community at Harvard, have been the Vafas. So Professor Kamran Vafa is a really esteemed professor of physics, probably the foremost string theorist in the world, and he's a professor here. He's the advisor for our undergraduate student organization, and he and his wife, Mrs. Afani Vafa, really make Nowruz feel like Nowruz here at Harvard. Every celebration we have, Mrs. Vafa puts together the beautiful Haft-Seen table, which is the table of 7 S's, which symbolize all of the greatness and newness and joy of the new year, and has really beautiful symbolic value. She always puts together a beautiful table each year. Dr. Vafa is always participating in organizing the different Nowruz events and bringing students together each year. They have a gathering at their home around the time of the Persian New Year. So they've been really special in bringing together this community and I think a lot of us feel as if they're kind of our second parents away from home, and it's just been really amazing and special to see what they've so generously done to bring this community together, especially at such an important time. And I can only imagine that going forward, as I go into my professional life and build my own family, that Nowruz is going to maintain a very special part of my life and a special place in my heart as I continue to celebrate my Persian heritage, and look forward to maybe one day spending Nowruz in Tajrish in Tehran.
Hi, my name is Evan Mateen, and I am a Persian American Jew living in Los Angeles. Persian Jews are very lucky because we get to celebrate 3 New Years, unlike most people who celebrate maybe 2 or 1. So the 3 New Years that we celebrate are first Rosh Hashanah in the fall, second the Gregorian New Year on January 1st, and third Nowruz at the vernal equinox. So whenever I tell people that I'm a Persian Jew, I usually get a couple of questions like, how is that possible? When did Jews go to Iran? How many Persian Jews are there in the world? Well, actually, Persian Jews are some of the oldest Jews to date that are still in existence. So essentially, when you go back to the destruction of the first temple in 587 BCE by Nebuchadnezzar II of the Babylonian Empire, Jews were essentially expelled from the ancient land of Israel, and we were dispersed throughout what is contemporarily known as the Middle East. After about 70 years or so, Cyrus the Great of Persia reconquered that land, expelled the Babylonians, and came to the Jews living in the Middle Eastern area and told us that essentially you're free to practice your religion. If you'd like to go back to the land of Israel, you're welcome to, but if you want to stay in Persia, you're also more than welcome to come and practice freely. So a small group of Jews at the time went back to Israel, but the bigger portion of Jews that were living at that time had already assimilated to extra-Israeli lifestyles. So they were living in a more modern context as opposed to what was viewed as a more archaic lifestyle in Israel at the time. So the larger population of Jews that lived in what is now known as Iran became Persian Jews, and they acculturated and acquired a lot of those Eastern cultural elements that we associate with Persian culture today, firstly being Nowruz. Nowruz is a really special holiday to me, my family, and definitely most people in my community because as Persians living outside of Iran, it's really nice to have something that connects us back to what we know was a culture that we were so connected to for well over 2,000 years. When you walk into our house around Nowruz time, you're going to see a regular Persian half-scene with the sabzi and the samanu. But what actually makes our half-scene table different is that rather than a Quran, we have a Torah sitting on the table next to the mirror, and we also typically have a book of Hafez poetry. Something that I find really interesting that parallels both Rosh Hashanah and Nowruz is that on Rosh Hashanah we say that we want to have a sweet new year. So we have a prayer and a blessing. We dip apples in honey to celebrate that sweet new year. And similarly, on Nowruz, you're supposed to eat shirini to celebrate a sweet new year. So I really find it interesting that both cultures have that similarity, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was some similar root to that, maybe in the fact that so many Jews spent time celebrating Nowruz for well over a couple thousand years. Nowruz is also really cool because, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't really that connected to Iran anymore, but on Nowruz, we typically have a TV on that has the countdown to Nowruz playing from a television station in Iran. And it kind of feels like you're sitting around with all of these Persian people and everyone's speaking Farsi and there's all this Persian food all around. And because we're in California, the weather's amazing, all the doors are open, there's music playing outside and everyone is having a good time. It kind of, I don't know, it feels like what I would think it would be like to be in Iran celebrating Nowruz. So I really enjoy it and I'm really thankful that I have that connection to my culture and also that cool interwoven fabric of being Persian, being Jewish, and being American.
Hello, Salam. My name is Layla Kasari, and I'm currently a junior here at Harvard College. Right now, we're seated in Winthrop House, which is my own residential dorm while I'm here at this college. I study human, developmental, and regenerative biology while getting a secondary or minor in government. But today, I'm here to talk to you about Nowruz and what this very special holiday means for me and for my family. Before coming to Harvard, I grew up in the Midwest, the center of the United States. First in Ohio and then in Missouri. In Ohio, my family had found a very tight-knit group of Iranian family friends. But when we moved to St. Louis, Missouri, we left all of them behind. Growing up in St. Louis, I was one of the few really only Iranians in my group of friends. This meant that all Iranian holidays and cultural traditions were celebrated very inwardly within my own immediate family. That is, except for Nowruz. For me and my family, Nowruz has always meant a time of reconnecting and reuniting with loved ones across the globe. But one thing that I really valued about Nowruz growing up was the opportunity it provided me for reconnecting with my own cultural heritage. During Nowruz dinners, my parents and their friends would tell us all stories about how they were brought up in Iran. I would hear stories about jumping over fires and lost relatives that I hadn't even heard of before. I also loved Nowruz for the time that it let me spend with my grandfather. My grandfather spent half of each year in Iran and in the United States. And the years that he came to the US for Nowruz were some of the best celebrations I can remember. My grandfather recently passed away, and Nowruz continues to mean a time of remembrance for him in my own life. I also love what comes 13 days after Nowruz itself, which is Sizde Vidar. During this time, my family would often drive up to 3 hours just to meet family, friends, and family in a picnic in a park and have a wonderful picnic with lots of food and games and even dancing. Those are some of my best memories growing up. Now, coming to Harvard, I've been so grateful to find such an incredible community of Iranians here. This has meant that I never had to stop celebrating Nowruz, even when I've been away from home, largely due to the generosity and support of Dr. and Mrs. Vafa, who welcome all of us into their homes every year, and even put out a Hafsin that's awesome and rivaling the one of my own family. I've loved every moment of being able to celebrate my culture and heritage right here on Harvard's campus. And part of that has been helping run the gala this year as the co-chair. The Harvard Iranian Gala allows us to celebrate Iranian leaders and accomplishments across this globe. I'm so incredibly lucky that coming to Harvard has not meant having to sacrifice my Iranian heritage, but rather allows me to celebrate it even more and even more loudly. I can't wait to keep celebrating Nowruz here at Harvard and beyond.
Thank you for asking me to be a part of this project. It has been a pleasure to be part of the Nowruz celebration at Harvard for so many years now. Each Nowruz, when we set up the Hafsin table here at the various events at Harvard, it gives me great joy to think that to the Iranian students and community, this may bring a feeling of being at home and with their families. The Iranian New Year starts at the time of the spring equinox. Equinox is the moment when the axis of the Earth is perpendicular to the line that connects the Earth to Sun. It happens twice a year on the first day of the fall and the first day of the spring, around March 20th or 21st. During these days, the length of the day is equal to the length of the night. We are now in year 1397 in Iran. The origin of this solar calendar is from Prophet Muhammad's pilgrimage from Mecca to Medina. But Nowruz has been celebrated in Iran for thousands of years, before the arrival of Islam. It is celebrated in Iran by Muslims, Christians, Jews, as well as Zoroastrians. Around the world, Nowruz is celebrated by more than 300 million people in the following countries: Afghanistan, Albania, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Iraq, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and it's also celebrated by the Kurdish people in Iraq and Turkey, as well as by the Parsis in India. The New Year festivities in Iran start from a few weeks before the start of the New Year, when all households go through a major spring cleaning called in Farsi khane tekani, literally meaning shaking of the house. Iranians will often thoroughly clean their homes, rearrange, make or buy new clothes, germinate seeds in preparation for the Nowruz table, bake pastries, and so on. On the eve of the last Wednesday of the year, called Charshanbe Suri, or the festive Wednesday, bonfires are lit on the streets or in the backyards, and people jump over them saying, "Zardi man az to, sorkhi to az man," which translates to, "Give me your warmth and red glow and take away my pale, sickly yellow color." The idea is that with the help of fire and light, one gives away darkness and goes towards the arrival of spring with longer days. There is a Nowruz mythical figure called Amu Nowruz, or Uncle Nowruz. He would be the equivalent of Santa Claus, except he does not bring any gifts. The gift he brings is spring. He's an old man with a white beard and a felt hat called Kolah Namadi, walking around with the aid of a cane and wearing special shoes called give. He's married to Nane Sarma, or Lady Winter. They have a unique love story in that they meet only once a year, for one day only, and for a very short time, and that is at Nowruz. Because as spring or Uncle Nowruz arrives, winter or Lady Winter has to go. Although here in New England, I think our Lady Winter seems to be much more persistent, as she stays around longer even after spring has arrived. So their romance lasts longer. The centerpiece of every Nowruz celebration in Iran is Sofre Haftsin, or the Haftsin spread. This is a spread or a table consisting of 7 items that start with S in Farsi. Sib, which is apple for beauty, serke, which is vinegar for immortality and patience, samanu, a creamy wheat pudding for health and strength, sabze, which is sprout for rebirth, sir, which is garlic for health and medicinal benefits, senjed, which is dried wild olive or the fruit of the lotus tree representing love, sumak, a spice representing the beautiful color of sunrise or sunset, also representing the spice of life. In addition to the 7 S's, we have sombol, which is hyacinth, which is the flower of spring for beauty and fragrance, sekke, which is coined for prosperity and wealth, mirror for self-reflection, candle for light, Quran or another religious book or a book of poetry for spirituality, colored eggs for fertility, pastries for sweetness of life, goldfish for life and also as a sign of the end of the month of fish, rose water for fragrance. Nowruz literally means new day. And the themes of Nowruz are renewal, rebirth, growth, affirmation of life in harmony with nature, and awareness of the natural cycles of renewal. At the Tahvil Sal, or when the year is supposed to change, everyone in the family gathers around the Haftsin table in their new clothes. It is a moment of prayer, contemplation, good wishes, and thoughts. There's a saying that whatever mood you are in at the start of the year will continue for the rest of the year. So everyone tries to have positive thoughts and wishes. After Tahvil Sal, there are hugs and kisses, and Happy New Year wishes are exchanged. Sweet treats are passed around, and there are many congratulatory telephone calls that start right after the New Year starts. Meal of the New Year's Eve is sabzi polo, which is an herbed rice with 4 different kinds of herbs, with fish, and kuku sabzi, which is a frittata made with various fresh herbs. The Nowruz holiday in Iran lasts for 13 days. Schools are closed for 13 days, and government agencies or businesses usually have at least a week off. During this time, the younger members of the family visit the older ones. These are usually short visits during which tea is served with Nowruz sweets, and the young people receive new coins or crispy new money bills as AD or their gift. On the 13th day, most families travel for a picnic to countryside. They usually pick an orchard or a place in nature with lots of trees and ideally a stream. There will be lots of food, backgammon, outdoor games, songs. The idea of leaving your house is to get rid of the evil eye and the bad omen of number 13. To this end, families bring the green sprouts that they had grown for Nowruz and throw it away into a stream so that all bad wishes are gone with it. There's also a saying that for those unmarried people who wish to get married in the new year, they should tie a knot on the grass or the sprout, and then their wish for marriage will come true in the new year. To conclude, I would like to recite a poem about the new year. It is a rubai or couplet from Hafiz, the Iranian poet from 14th century. I will first read it in Farsi and then translate to English. سال و فال و مال و حال و اصل و نسل و تخت و بخت بادت در شهریاری برقرار و بر دوام. سال خرم، فال نیکو، مال وافر، حال خوش، اصل ثابت، نسل باقی، تخت عالی، بخت رام. May your year, your fortune, your origin, your generation, your luck continue to flourish. May you be blessed with a merry year, divine omens, plenty of goods, a happy mood, the continuation of your generation, and a tamed faith. Happy Nowruz, Sal Nov Mubarak.
Hi everyone, my name is Zara and I'm so happy and excited to tell you about what Nowruz means to me. Nowruz to me is a time where we come together, we forget about what separates us, what divides us, and we come and sit with each other, hug each other, love on each other, all in the name of a new day, a rebirth, a renaissance. It's really, truly to me means that we kind of revisit how we've been enjoying our lives and living our lives and think about what can be uprooted and what seeds can be planted, what needs to be nurtured and what needs to be let go of. It's a time of family. It's a time of choosing to see the good despite what might be going on. And I'm so happy that you get to learn about it and maybe even include it in your own family's traditions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Parsa Irfani. I have been celebrating Nowruz for all of my life. I grew up in America, and March 20th or 21st has always been a time of family getting together, celebrating a new year, celebrating the start of spring, sitting together around the Nowruz table, the haft scene, and celebrating what we're grateful for and what we wish for the following year.
Hi, my name is Siavash Zamirpour. I'm a sophomore at Harvard studying chemistry, and Nowruz to me is a time to spend with family and to be grateful for everyone around you and to welcome in the new year with all your friends and family. Happy Nowruz to everyone.
Hi everyone, my name is Latifa Avani and I'm a PhD student here at Harvard in a study of religion, and I used to be a master's student at Harvard Law School. I was asked to talk about Nowruz and what it means to me. The most important thing for me about Nowruz is family. I really miss my family, my mother, my father right now so much, and I hope that they're doing well. When I was a kid, my brother and I used to go to Semnan in my grandmother's house, and it was beautiful. We had all the family members there, and I really miss those days. They were golden days of my life. I wish all of you very happy new year and عید همتون مبارک باشه. ایشالله سال خیلی خوبی داشته باشین.
نان که کرد او در رخ خوبات نور خورشید است از شیشه سرنگ، شیشه های رنگ رنگ آن می نمایند این چنین رنگین به ما چون نماند شیشه های رنگ رنگ نور بیرنگت کند آنگاه دنگ خوی کن خوی کن خوی کن بی شیشه دیدن نور را تا چو شیشه بشکند نبود امان نبود امان.